Honored to be back in the infamous Shawn Johnson studio, his new studio. My name is Jesse Beltran. I'm the president of an organization that promotes MindNexusLive.com. I am a TSCM investigator. Technical surveillance countermeasures is my forte, and I travel the world helping people who are experiencing what is known as Havana syndrome, anomalous health incidents, but I've been covering this since 2010. And we're here because we just recently interviewed an MI6 whistleblower. He Oxford educated in PhD in chemistry, and he's also a specialist, one of the few in the world who uses magnetometry technology to find hidden explosives. And he saw an interview that I had done and said, this guy gets it. He's the only one that's been able to explain it. So he contacted me, and as soon as he contacted me and I found out who he was, my partner here, who will introduce himself, and I hopped on an airplane to the UK, and we took full advantage of the opportunity and interviewed him for about 4 hours over 2 days.
Yeah, it was quite a trip. I've had the honor of getting to travel with Jesse over the world for the last couple months. My name is Edward Szall. I am the producer of Died Suddenly and about 7 other films, to including the Sacrificing Liberty, which is on the attack on the USS Liberty, and Final Days, Slave Nation. I'm a producer on several concerted shows nationally, to include. We usually keep them behind the scenes, so I won't mention all of them. But the ones we were producing are no longer on. I am unfortunately responsible for that monster that is Laura Loomer.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so we produced for her for about 7 years. We produced for Stu Peters, too.
Yeah.
Before he went a little, Yeah. Of course. The other kind of stuff I've been up to since getting out of the military, that was not like you, bloody hell, you SEAL Team 3. I was looking at some of your photos with a beard and your beautiful gun and compact bow, but
It's a Mark 48 in that one over there.
that's pretty good. Yeah, I was a tank commander and did recon before I got out and basically took a retirement assignment so I could marry my wife.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you for
That's
your
awesome.
service.
Yes. Sorry,
And,
I'm looking for something here.
After that, I became a reporter at True News. I was the White House correspondent for True News for the first Trump administration, so from 2016 all the way on to early 2020, 2021. I then founded my own media company called TLM Global, and that company is responsible for a whole bunch of awesome stuff, to include several of the immigration ads that President Trump ran in 2023 and 24. We've produced a lot of great media, and that's what I'm doing now. We've gone after projects where they're controversial, they're not high paying, but they're important, and that's been the business model.
Awesome.
For the last couple of years.
Well, great to have you guys back on. Cheers.
Cheers,
you have a
brother.
drink on you?
I feel like I should get a drink with you guys, but might get shot by my wife.
It's up to you. There's more coffee in there if you run out.
Sean, I told her, I'm like, yeah, when are you gonna be done? 4 hours. Hey, take care, honey. Okay.
Awesome. Well, Jesse reached out to me yesterday and he said, hey, man, we're in Austin and I have some like groundbreaking stuff that I know I was just on recently, but this is like some major stuff that the world needs to hear. So I immediately was like, let's go, baby. Like, let's go. I'll make time. I'll carve time out, for that. So why don't you just go ahead and fill everybody in on what's going on here?
Yeah, well, the Havana syndrome that is associated with the diplomats in Havana, Cuba, who started hearing some strange sound in their head, followed by short-term, long-term memory fog, severe head pain, vertigo, and more specifically shocks to the torso and extremities. And Sean Ryan just interviewed a gentleman by the name of AJ, top dog CIA agent, many accomplishments, who was attacked by this, basically this technology. And what we're
Do you remember specifically what happened to this AJ guy?
Yeah, he was hit by some type of directed energy weapon and completely contracted his body. He thought he was going to die, but then he had it was a continuous attack, and he suffered significant cognitive degenerative issues, hearing loss, affected his eyesight, and he's still living with the fallout from that attack to this day. And what we're about to see is an MI6 asset who talks about how the agents and assets are being mandated or coerced to take on this system. And he explains what it is, and he completely identifies it as what people might call Havana syndrome technology.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that got on Shawn Ryan podcast. I mean, that's awesome that it's getting out there more. I mean, how long was it since your first podcast with me? And nobody had heard about it, any of this stuff.
Oh gosh, yeah. What, six months ago?
At least six, seven.
Yeah, and today that thing is still raising eyebrows and gathering traction. And
yeah, it's crazy. Every day there's still comments on that same post. Like
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah, and it was because of you that gave us the foundation to get on, other platforms and bring forward these whistleblowers that are coming to us now.
Well, the first time you hear about this stuff, it's like almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like you're reading a sci-fi book, and it's like, no, this can't be happening. You know what I mean? Not on this kind of scale. I think that's what threw me off at first. Maybe on like, a case-by-case basis around the world. Maybe certain countries are dabbling in this, but then when you hear about the wide scale, like, no, dude, they've already passed up those small trial bases that happens in these such a things. Like, this is like wide scale issues that's going on, and it's whole populations, it's whole cultures, it's whole countries. It's weird. I guess it's weird for people because they never even heard of it coming up, unless you were somebody that was like really digging, and you're constantly watching all of these conspiracy theory in quotes type of podcasts or anything like that. Then you most likely have never heard about this. And it's like, no, we've already passed A, B, C, and D, and we are in E now, and it is fucking everywhere, and it's way too late now.
Yeah.
Well, it's by design, too. Think about it. The whole term conspiracy theorist was invented by Hillary Clinton as a way to discredit information before it came forward, because there are definitely plenty of conspiracies out there that turn out to be true, starting with the one in the White House with Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, and ending with the theories, which, look, some of, serving in the military, there's plenty of things which have been reporting on or have been rumored to have happened around the world, and they definitely did happen. They only came out as like a theory or a rumor. But in respect to what Jesse's been shedding light on, it's been the context of this and the way it's been presented has been used as a weapon against those that have actually been targeted. All right, it's a gaslighting that, of course, they make it sound like it's insane if someone's saying they're hearing voices in their head and that they're experiencing trauma and attacks. And the world's been conditioned to just dismiss that person as a schizophrenic or a crazy person, when in actuality, it's someone who's drowning, has been calling for help, and the people in the dock have just been laughing at him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's that thing everybody always says? Is he in the room here with you right now?
Yeah.
It's like people make fun of it. It's a joke. It's like no, dude, these people are actually hearing and I can only imagine what they think, like the people that are mocking this. Like, do you think it's just like they hear some random strange voice? Like what would that be like? Imagine if you heard a different grown man's voice in your head, or a female voice.
And it's all of the above. I've been covering this since 2010, and we do surveys, and along with RF testing, nonlinear junction testing, and frequency counter analysis. And so a lot of the complaints, it could be any of the above and all of the above.
Do they hear multiple different types of voices?
Usually in the beginning, it's either a male or female. Then it can be a male and female. It can be groups of different people.
Multiple people can be talking to them at the same time.
And you'll hear what this MI6 discloses, this MI6 asset discloses. He says he was ordered to use it because it's a synthetic telepathy communication device that has nanosecond latency. So that means it's real time in just minute seconds. So just as if you and I are talking to each other across this table, they're talking to each other via this modality. Right. And he calls it multifaceted.
It's better than my cell phone coverage.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, well, it goes everywhere. You can be underwater and they can still talk to you.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And so who is this MI6 guy, and how'd you meet him?
I met him because I did a podcast on a major
Redacted.
platform, Redacted, out there, and he reached out and he said, he said, Jess, as soon as I heard you explain it so calmly and methodically, I knew you knew what you were talking about, and I had to reach out to you because I think it's time that humanity knows that this is real, and we need to do something to stop it.
Okay. So he came to you. How did he reach out to you? Through DM or?
Yeah, he actually contacted Grady, just like Grady contacted you, and Grady forwarded me over the email, and I said, let's get a hold of this guy.
Yeah.
I want to see his credentials. I want to fact check everything that he says who he is, and both of us.
And what in that initial message like caught your eye? Because since we've done our first podcast, I've had multiple people reach out to me, say, "Hey, how do I get in touch with these guys?"
Yeah.
And so I always point them in a direction. But what stood out as an anomaly in what he sent you?
He said he was an MI6 asset. He said that he was Oxford educated with a PhD in chemistry.
Okay.
And he had worked in the Middle East. He had headed platoons in Somalia City,
In Yemen.
specifically in Yemen. Yeah. And he, it sounded too good to be true for me. And he sent me over the documents to prove who he was, and we started fact checking it all, and it all panned out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So okay, so you guys meet this guy in person, and then what unfolds from that moment?
We can play the video, and I think that's probably a good place to start of the interview.
Okay.
And Shawn, I specifically asked you to do this because you have the perfect pacing, the perfect environment to allow the listeners and viewers to slowly, methodically go through this and get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go. Let's get on this. This is another one of those things. It's unbelievable, but yet it's happening.
My name is Rafe Hassel. I'm a British citizen. After graduating from Oxford University with a degree in chemistry, I went abroad for about 12 to 13 years. A decade of that time was spent in the Middle East, East Africa, and to an extent, Asia. During that time, I worked for a number of organizations ranging from the US Department of State as a contractor, commercial security companies, or one security company, the United Nations Development Programme, and a British university. And during that time, I worked in Afghanistan, Iraq, Jordan, Sudan, Somalia, and more specifically Somaliland, Turkey, and I had lived and studied in Lebanon and also in Yemen. So quite a lot of time spent in Middle East, in particular post-conflict and conflict environments. And in around 2013, I returned to Europe, and in the following years, up until about 2016, I was employed with an engineering company, first of all, and then subsequently became self-employed. And in 2015 or thereabouts, at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, I was coerced into becoming an intelligence asset here in the United Kingdom. In late 2016, I was involved very heavily in an intelligence-led operation here in London, which lasted until mid-2018. And following that period of time, where I participated to an extent voluntarily, also out of compulsion, but willingly, let me say, at the end of the day. In 2018, that process ended, and I was in a dreadful state. The work, in inverted commas, that I've been doing involved a lot of technology that became known as related to Havana syndrome. It took me years to recover, but I was fortunate enough to do so, and unfortunate that I didn't die. I had an enormous range of health problems after this, and including stage 3 bowel cancer. So I had to have half my bowel removed. I went through chemotherapy. I lost hair. I had huge skin problems. At the end of 2018, I could barely see. And in any case, I was lucky enough to survive. In about 2021, after my recovery, so to speak, I was again pressed back into service, but this time unwillingly. I'd had enough. And matters came to a head in early 2022 when I sought to have myself released from service, for which I was not getting paid, and I was being exposed to unnecessary risk and all sorts of other social and financial inconveniences, that I took the matter to, well, our court here that is specialized in working with the intelligence services, something called the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. That, in one form or another, that matter has sat with that tribunal ever since, in various claims under the Section 7 Human Rights Act, or be it under the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000, complaints against the tools and methods and approaches that are used. By and large, I haven't really received any sense of judicial closure. That said, I am no longer in service anymore, and so from that perspective, it's been successful, but it has come, the whole last 10 years of my life has come at an enormous price, financially, socially, and to my family. So I will say maybe up front that I wouldn't classify myself as a targeted individual per se. These methods were disclosed to me in a graduated fashion, which were designed to acclimatize me and to allow me to operate with a certain degree of comfort. I mean, I use the word comfort loosely here because it is incredibly invasive and at times extremely unpleasant. That said, I knew the purpose of it. I then used this technology, and I will say quite clearly that without it, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today, because certain aspects were essential to my survival in 2016 and 17, particularly. That said, it has been used to coerce me as an agent, to sanction me if I wasn't behaving, or I was refusing to undertake certain tasks or meet certain people or not meet certain people, or whatever the case may be. And that became, when that strayed into, oddly enough, that wasn't what tipped me over the edge. What tipped me over the edge was that I have a sideline in cryptography, and it has been an interest of mine a professional interest of mine for a number of years. And at the end of 2021, I developed a cipher, a method of encryption that is quantum cryptography proof. I have a long and association with quantum mechanics. It was at university, at my master's level, I was using quantum mechanics in a form of laser spectroscopy research. And ever since, I've maintained an interest, and that has extended to quantum computing to a certain degree, and quantum cryptography. Anyway, I developed a cipher that was secure to quantum decryption. And it was my intent to use this for financial gain for myself, be it with, security companies or software companies, what have you. And that was not allowed. In fact, I came to a semi-formal agreement with the security services that I would be paid for that cipher. And I received certain unconventional, yet in my world, assurances that would be the case, and they were reneged upon. And that was the final straw that broke the donkey's back, and that was what prompted me to make the complaint to the Investigatory Powers Tribunal, which I did. And in fact, on the day, I also went to the police. I took the cipher, printed out and in code, packaged it in brown envelopes, labeled them with my name, date of birth, and so on. And I took them to 2 police stations, one here in North London, one here in South London. And I deposited them and reported that, I was receiving threats on the basis of this cipher. And this was the proof of the pudding, let me say, is in the eating. And the cipher was that. In any case, I took photographs of the cipher at the police stations in the envelopes, and later on, I was told 6 months later that both had gone missing. And then I knew, obviously, the police have Reaper powers, so they are entitled to collaborate with our intelligence services if it's properly warranted and authorized. And although I had photographic evidence to show that I had deposited these things that had gone missing, and it clearly says on it, evidence sample. And in any case, and then what followed were several years of extremely fractious conflict, where I sought to assert my, what we call here in the UK, convention rights. We don't call them, they are human rights, and they're covered by something called the European Human Rights Convention. But in the UK, they're referred to as convention rights, and they cover the main ones that you might imagine. And asserting my rights has been an extraordinarily uphill battle, which is probably through its worst parts. I mean, it couldn't have got worse, really, than when I first tried to break free. that was awful. And so today, I'm going to use the word loosely again, but I enjoy a certain standard of living. I'm not a targeted individual, touch wood. And to an extent, my civil rights, my convention rights are realized, but not completely. And as a result, I deliberately do not work, because I will not contribute any income to a system that has denied me some of my most basic rights under our legal system. That doesn't feel to me to be a very good or principled thing to do. So I sort of live in a kind of holding pattern now, whilst I wait for certain legal matters to play out.
When you said you started to lose your eyesight, your hair, and so forth,
yeah,
that was prior to the chemotherapy.
Yes, it was definitely prior to the chemotherapy. So during October 2016 to the beginning of 2018, I was exposed to harmful levels of radiation several times a week. In fact, it was my role to do something which older viewers might understand as war driving, which is the entire purpose is to travel around in order to get your opponents to raise their head above the parapet with these systems, this technology, and that usually involves being targeted by it. There are tradecraft plays around that in terms of agitation and so on, but that's kind of superfluous to this discussion. But my role was to basically be a target. And, well, one of my main roles was to basically be a target. And so at the end of, almost 2 years of exposure, I was in a dreadful state. I could, barely see. It was as though when I was at university, I boxed, and on one occasion I was punched by an American, actually, who was a former Hot Shots, the firefighter. Anyway, he happened to be at the university, and he clocked me around the head. And he somehow managed to get me on a right frequency that it set the gel inside my eye vibrating. That can happen, apparently. So I had to go and get it checked out. But it was a bit like that. My entire world was like blurry. I basically had real issues with my vision. I had my eyes checked out. They found stigmatism. However, I went about 6 months ago and they say, oh, that's interesting. Your stigmatism is cleared. So it did something physiologically, for example, in that instance, to my eyes. But also I have had dreadful hearing problems ever since. And as I say, I lost hair on my head, which has grown back. I lost hair in patches all over my body. I lost extreme amounts of weight. I became anemic. And then that was when I learned that I had bowel cancer.
In my past 20 years of covering this phenomenon,
What is he talking about? What caused all of these symptoms?
so he's talking about the electromagnetic frequencies that were being beamed at him with this system.
Okay, and where is he saying these beams were being, where did they originate?
He didn't disclose where they were originated. He said it was when he was out on an assignment in the environment that he was required to be a target, as you've heard.
So one time caused all of this, or multiple occasions? Or was it continuously all the time?
It's all the time, because when you'll hear him later in the interview where he talks about this system being mandated by his superiors, his handlers, to take it on as a covert communication device, it's constantly on. It doesn't pause. It's on all the time, and we'll hear that explanation here.
And at any point during this interview, did you ever have any doubt in the authenticity of what he was saying?
Absolutely not, and I'll tell you why. We had a spectrum analyzer running in the background prior to him getting there. And as soon as he approached and came to the door, our spectrum analyzer was being jammed. So I had to reset it and reestablish what baseline frequencies we were getting. And the Ministry of Defense frequency started popping up as soon as he walked.
And then for the viewers that this is the first time they're hearing, what is that device and what does it do?
A spectrum analyzer is a device that will analyze all frequencies in an environment. We're always we're in a world that lives with bombardments of different types of frequencies, and a lot of them are normal. So what you do in my field is you take a baseline of the environment that you're in. Oh, and by the way, we did find a listening device that was planted in my room.
I saw it. He showed me. I was, what the hell's this?
Yeah. It was a bug. It had an antenna and everything, and it was mounted up into the light fixture. Wow. Yeah, and I think I showed you a picture of it yesterday. Yeah, what that was. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Just from first glance, not knowing, ever seeing this guy before, as soon as this thing started, he seemed very shaky. He's probably not very familiar with being on camera and being recorded. So he's either a very, very good actor or he's telling the truth. Just from my first interpretation of what I'm seeing in front of me. He seemed very timid, very shaken, but also you could tell as he's talking, he's getting more and more relieved of being able to get this off his chest and onto a camera that's going to be able to speak for him, where he can't, because it's pretty obvious at this point he doesn't have a voice there, and he doesn't feel like he's getting justice.
Exactly, and your read is spot on, because that's my background. I, as a master hypnotherapist, and I read people. You read the body language, and that's going to tell you a lot more than what the vocal is.
Yeah, and he just now seems like he's starting to relax and open up, so I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen here.
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Grizzly Coolers, the only cooler I trust when I'm out there. Roto-molded, bear-proof, and holds ice for 10 days straight. And unlike the overseas knockoffs, every Grizzly is proudly made in America with American steel and American grit. Hit grizzlycoolers.com and use my code Shawn, that's SHAWN, for 15% off. Grizzly Coolers, built here, built tough.
Exposure to electromagnetic frequencies.
Correct.
So is that what we're talking about?
Yes, I think so. And I think it goes further than that. And I have wondered and in fact expressed my concerns to the IPT, which I'll call it from now on, as to how criminal conduct authorizations under the REPA Act were ever authorized for this type of activity. And the conclusion that I've come to is that it is a singular system for surveillance probably based on microwave phase interferometry. That is an incredibly powerful non-line of sight surveillance system. However, it can be repurposed to manipulate the electric field around a person. And so in my case, that is what I think it was, in that it's a surveillance system, but you can also nudge the dial up, and that will cause discomfort to the people that are sitting within the field. That's what I assumed it to be, and I think that is the case, not always. So in the summer of 2016, that was my working assumption, and that is how it was explained to me, actually, in one way or another. I've showed you the physical diagrams that were given to me by my handlers in the security service that implied that it was like interference. Mm-hmm. That was what it was. They said, avoid interference. That was the message. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a system that is finely tuned, but hey, we can flip the dial and it'll be, it won't be so finely tuned, and that interference will be a sanction. Avoid it, do what we say, to a certain extent.
You were to take on this system as a means of communication. Is
Correct.
That correct?
It is correct. My handlers were keen that I no longer communicated with them digitally via, for example, electronic Dropbox, which up until that time had been pretty much my only means of communication if I wasn't dealing directly with covert human intelligence sources or other agents in the field, which did happen. No, they wanted me to use this system for communications. And because there was something that really, there's something incredibly clever about this system, that it can, it can provide a digital, presumably a signal of your internal monologue. That's incredibly clever. But on the other hand, it's incredibly invasive. And there was something that really put me off adopting it wholesale. And so I continued to use the electronic Dropboxes. And as a result, I've got an enormous amount of what I would consider to be evidence, because I complain, I provide frustration, I acknowledge things that I think that are good, or things that are working out, or provide my inputs on an approach to something. And that's really been the case for years. I think it is completely fair to describe this technology as a means of synthetic telepathy.
Are you able to describe how this system is installed?
Well, I think in my case, I was a previous generation of technology. So in my case, it is a dental implant, of which I can provide you the notes of its installation. It is described as a form of prosthetic, I think is the word, dental implant, and which I had absolutely no need for. And in fact, the X-rays show that it is a weird shaped object that is in my upper right molar. That was, I understand, the basis of the ability to do this.
So there's something key about what he just said, and I'm not sure if you caught it. He says that the system is very intrusive and it can read your internal monologue. Do you know what he's saying there?
So as you're talking to yourself, it's understanding what you're saying.
Yeah, it's reading your thoughts. Wow. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, that's what he's referring to.
Okay. And he's so loose with his conversations. It just makes me wonder, I as he was speaking, I was wondering, with your expertise in this field compared to what he worked in, the environment and all of the training that he did with this equipment, how was that, having a conversation with somebody that's Was he on par with you? Was he above you in experience, expertise?
You got to remember, I'm probably one of the leading experts about this topic, and so I know this phenomenon inside and out. But he's completely on par, and he knows it at a level that in the 20 years that I'm dealing with people would not know.
Mm-hmm. And did you were you ever refraining from going back and forth with them just in case this might be some sort of intelligence?
You always, being in this field, you and I both know it's a game. Yeah, and so you have to be careful that it's not how much do I know? What are the frequencies that I'm detecting?
They might be trying to gather information from you by pretending to know about X, Y, and Z.
And you'll notice that I don't ask very many questions. I'm letting him talk. I want to hear his narrative, and I'm watching the body language. And no point in time that I ever get that until later, maybe on day 2, something odd happened. And we'll talk about that when we get.
All I'd add is that I think he was also testing us too.
Yes.
That was So I mean, I was doing the production for this. I had a cameraman with me too, and I'll kind of let Jesse choose what we share and what share. I'll just say it was pretty obvious that he had intelligence training, and I knew enough just to obviously not say anything, not reveal information that wasn't already kind of out. But it felt, and it was identifiable that he was testing us too, just to make sure. And I think maybe that's just built into his training, but yeah.
And so he just vetted you through the documentary you were making and listening to Jesse. That was his. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
I mean, the ability is enabled by the technology. I have absolutely no telepathic abilities of my own. I mean, that's simply not the case. But that synthetic aspect that is enabled by the dental implant. That said, in recent years, it has been made known to me that it doesn't matter if you get rid of it, and I have considered doing that. By the way, I have discussed that with the dentist. We've discussed the nature of what it is, not the clandestine uses of it, but its apparent nature as a dental implant as opposed to some form of cavity protection. But I decided to keep it in because I think with the right place and the right time, I think it could be interesting, certainly, for someone to examine it, and they couldn't guarantee that it would be kept. That was one of the reasons why I didn't, because otherwise I would have liked to maybe get rid of it.
Having this implant, are they able to geolocate you with it in?
Well, yes. I mean,
utilizing signals
on the assumption that I would ever be quote unquote lost, probably. But I mean, that situation has never arisen because I have mainly been here. I mean, with some limited exceptions, I travel back to the Middle East during my service, so to speak. But there was never a time when I was ever not acquired, let me say, that I needed to be reacquired by some form of positioning technology. I mean, once you're on the job, you're not out of anyone's sight anyway for any period of time. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I can only assume yes, because it is quite a clever system. At the time, I did not know about Havana syndrome. I did not know about these complaints that had been made by American foreign service personnel. So that was very interesting for me when I did become aware of it. I think it's important for me to make the distinction that...
Let's go ahead and pause there for a sec. So he does have, he showed the x-ray of that molar, that implant. And remember in our last podcast, we talked about how they were able to locate all of the leaders in Iran. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is very, very plausible. But they told him, you can go ahead and remove it. It's not going to matter because the system's still going to be in place. So he has the older tech in him and he has the newer system.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So the molar tech, that's old?
That's old.
Okay. The new stuff is the nano. And that's just spread throughout what is it, through the blood or like what exactly?
Well, the nano the nano was no different than, traditionally the military was implanting soldiers in the 40s through the 60s with a large RFID chip, large grain of rice, and then they got smaller and smaller. All nano is just a smaller implant.
But how does it move throughout the body? What body of fluid is it in within the body?
Well, it moves through your blood, your internal system. When we're talking about nano, you remember this crosses the blood-brain barrier. So they're programmed to, whatever the algorithm is in these little robots, they're going to do. And so they'll self-assemble, replicate, and they'll gravitate to those high-density nerve endings throughout the human body.
We're living in a sci-fi movie right now.
This isn't just one. There are several flavors of this technology. It is not just for surveillance, which you can, mess around with someone should you want to. Mm-hmm. But there are fairly brutal directed energy weapon systems that are designed to incapacitate. There's absolutely no motive, for example, to survey you or to understand what you're thinking. It is literally there to turn you into a vegetable. Mm-hmm. And that is what I understand is the really devastating, it can be fatal as well, technology.
Have you heard of that? Have you seen that technology be used?
Yes, it has been used against me. And in fact, beginning of October in 2016, I had what I then came to understand was a common attack vector, which is that I was at the sink, and I think that's been the case of a number of people who have reported. I was washing my hands, so clearly there is conductive effect, metal sink, and so on. And then suddenly I just heard the crackle of electricity around the back of my head, presumably something like the Frey effect, maybe, I don't know. But it was incredibly powerful and it knocked me to the floor. I couldn't breathe. I managed to make it to a different level of the house. And I waited for it to pass. And that was my introduction, let me say, to the alternative version. And that was not by my own government. That was the beginning of this intelligence-led operation, or my involvement in it.
You say not by your government,
yeah,
the UK government.
Yeah.
Who do you suspect? Or do you
know? Well, it was a foreign government. But I will say one thing, it was not the Russians.
Was it a friendly foreign government?
I will just say it's not the Russians. I think that's it. Because I've seen a lot of reporting from America where I think, certain people who have been, I've watched interviews with other people, they speculate or say that it was the Russians. However, in my case, I know for a fact it was not. So what can I say? And that was the exact time frame that it was taking place. I think everyone's doing this to a certain extent. Certainly the main players, the Security Council, they obviously all know about this technology, and to pretend otherwise is it's just nonsense. This has been well known since the 80s or even earlier. And I think that it's totally possible that all of these capabilities exist and are used by any of these governments in any combination that might fit whatever task or requirement at any one time. And so you cannot rule out anybody. And I think that in the case of the United States, and I've read through and understand that Havana CARES Act is only for foreign service personnel, government personnel. Well, that makes sense to an extent, because who else would it be? You are the government. Who else is it going to be? It will be, unless it's some form of counter-espionage activity, it's going to be a foreign government. Therefore, if you find a culpable party, well, that's fine. It's not the Americans. However, why not extend this to anomalous health incidents for citizens who are not part of the government? Well, that's a totally different can of worms, because what if it is part of counter-espionage operations, or indeed any other form of suppression, be it First Amendment or whatever? There are definitely flavors of this technology. and there are directional forms. And in fact, I once watched a documentary some years ago where maybe it was a Foreign Service, US Foreign Service security officer who said, I think, "Get off the X" was his expression. And I think certainly in my case, when I was at the sink and I got, well, I don't know, blitzed with something, that, although I didn't know it, I moved, but that would seem to me to be very good advice. That is directed. That is quite literally directed. How it's done, beam forming, whether it's line of sight or something, I couldn't tell you. What I can say is that the other device, which is creating a field, is non-line of sight, and it can be, you can just move around. You don't need to be in. Someone is not aiming it at you. That isn't the case. So I can only assume, and I'm just speculating here, that it's piggybacking off an existing network in this age where hybrid warfare is, the name of the game. An intelligence service wouldn't be worth very much if they hadn't tried to look at every single network and understand its cybernetic ability to affect change in the outside world, be it in the physical world, be it here in the confines of this country or abroad in someone else's. And all of these technologies have the ability to be reconstructed or reconfigured for other purposes. And so, in my view, absolutely. And I think that if certainly everything in the microwave and millimeter wave bands, I mean, it's quite common knowledge. LRADs, we see these systems in the street. Is it such a great leap of an assumption, a great assumption to say that, we could repurpose towers that already broadcast in similar frequencies to do similar things to the effects we see elsewhere? I don't think so. And certainly, with satellite systems and bringing 5G in the case of, for example, SpaceX, that's beaming down to your mobile handset. There is no denying that you have space to individual person communications, signaling. Now, whether you can upgrade the amount of milliwatts per centimeter squared of radiation to hit that person, that's another matter. But the technology certainly exists. You can do that, and to suggest otherwise is denial of modern science.
I know you have a strong. So, what is he saying there? What he's saying is this system is being put in people without their knowledge. And why is that important if you're doing counter surveillance or some type of surveillance activity? So if you have this in you and you're essentially a surveillance node unknowingly, and they can gather data that way. So that's what he's referring to there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What did you pick up on everything, Edward, with this guy? You in line with Jesse? Everything seemed to pass the smell test?
Not just pass the smell test, but it's clear that he saw us as a way to fight back, not just against his own government, but the government that did this to him too. He's a very methodical person, chess player. He's not just boxed, but this man is very intelligent. He knows strategy. I felt like he knew that if he did this interview with us, we would be sitting here with you and sitting with Alex Jones, sitting with other people. And he was expecting that this would put pressure on the government of the United Kingdom because, as he said, it's available right now. It's in front of a parliamentary committee. He is due money also from a patent that's getting held up in this cryptography. He needs pressure to be exerted. And also, I would say this, I think it's fair to say this, he wants a little bit of vengeance. I think that's fair to say. He's very perturbed by the people that tortured him and attacked him, like he was describing there. Yeah. It wasn't just the attacking, but also the intrusion of personal thought. He really was quite worked up about that. I don't think that was a fabrication at all.
So while he was on camera, is this stuff still affecting him today?
No, they've laid off of him.
Oh, they have.
Yeah, they have laid off of him. But also, he talks about the cancer. What he didn't say on camera, that he and his partner got the cancer at the same time.
Wow.
Yes. So that was the exposure to the RF emissions.
So they have this AJ guy that went on Sean Ryan's podcast, and then he's coming out now through you guys. What the fuck is going on?
AJ CIA.
Oh, CIA. Okay, I'm sorry. AJ was CIA. He's MI6. What is going on right now? Whistleblowers on both sides.
George W. Bush. Yeah, we won't go too far down the rabbit hole as you want to, but he gives pretty heavily and does this like run and bike race every year for the Navy SEALs, right? A lot of people have looked at that as like, oh, Bush he feels guilty about what people got exposed to, and I bring this up to say, I mean, you have a lot of friends in the military. You're in the military. I got a lot of friends in the military too. Our families got ravaged, man. Like, you go to some of these bases, the water supply was poisoned. There's other crap like that is seeped through the water. We probably got irradiated in some form. You especially more than me. Yeah. But my point is that their cancer rates in the military are really reported on. Infertility rates in the military are not really reported on. Certainly drug abuse and these other things, right? Those things impacted our family. And look, they don't care. Like, same with Rafe. He was an asset. They didn't care if it hit his family. Frankly, they might have actually, they might have done that on purpose. It's something to think about.
Should we carry on?
Yeah. Scientific background, and you have strong chemistry background. Without expounding on things that you've shared, could this system be brought down to that scale now? To a degree, I think it already was. And I say that because it was also made clear to me that there are non-toxic substances that can be ingested that increase your ability to act as an electrode, essentially. It improves the quality factor of transmission or whatever it may be. Those materials have been known about for some time. And so it doesn't strike me as strange. I think what's new is not the ability to turn someone into a better human antenna, but the ability to do other things. So, for example, in the past, where you may ingest a substance that improves the quality of your bioelectromagnetic field, but that's it. And yes, okay, you can scan that for electronic signatures, be it brainwaves, be it your heart rate, be it anything that you could potentially think of as a human producing in the course of its natural life processes. That requires a lot of work, but what can you do to that person? That's more limited. Well, it's limited to the radio frequencies, the types of effects that you might be able to project to that person. However, with the nanotechnology being as it is, and I'm not familiar with it, I'll be clear that this isn't part of my experience. This is something that's come on later. I understand that the technology for using nanomaterials is such that with certain frequency changes, you can get nanostructures and particles to do activities, i.e. warm someone up who has hypothermia. That's a real thing. To release chemicals or to release drugs. That's another peer-reviewed, known facet of nanotechnology within the human biome. So I think it opens up a new door of possibilities for this equipment. It's the next level, next generation of technology. And I can't, in all honesty, say that my experience has been completely bad with this technology. And I think that maybe sets me apart from quite a lot of people, in that if it wasn't for that technology, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. In fact, it is vanishingly unlikely I would still be here today. It's also was used in a therapeutic manner to relieve relieve the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And I won't go into details of that, but I acknowledged at the time that this was cutting edge intervention. And although I'm not grateful for it, because I think that would be taking it a step too far, I definitely acknowledge that without this technology, I wouldn't be. I really, even if I'd survived, I would be, a shadow of my former self. Whereas actually, I've bounced back quite well. So in that sense, yeah, it's a real double-edged sword, and I think that the opportunities are there for people. Some people are experimentalists. Some people like to do this kind of thing. You just have to look at the response to COVID to see that some people were quite happy to have themselves injected with numerous rounds of boosters, whereas other people were very hesitant. And regardless of what you think of that, if nothing else, it shows that people have a very different attitude towards therapeutics, and therapeutics that maybe have not undergone like longitudinal trials, which certainly in that case it hadn't. But there was a willingness to do it, and maybe some people would really like that. I once heard I don't know whether it's apocryphal or not, but there was thinking behind these blood alcohol monitors that you can stick on your arm, and it is taking a sample of blood alcohol level. And it was the idea of biohacking. So you're hacking yourself. So you can go to a bar, and the worry was, from a public health perspective, that people would drink, see their blood alcohol level go up, but carefully manage it so it wouldn't push them into drunkenness, but allow them to continue drinking for as long as possible, thereby, on the one hand, allowing them to operate socially for a much longer period of time, but on the other hand, destroying their liver in the process, because it all has to be metabolized. And I think that some people will have a very different perception of risk around these things. There are different technologies, right? There's the sound laser, for example. That seems to me, or the LRAD system for acoustics, that seems to me to be, the sort of Billy Basic voice to skull technology. It's there, it's undeniable. You can go and you can make one yourself. I mean, there are YouTube videos I watched for someone who made a speech jammer that plays back your own voice as an internal voice, exactly what you just said. And it's an extremely confusing event for people.
And the brain doesn't know how to respond.
You can just find this stuff and follow some instructions and make your own. I wouldn't recommend that. But that is this sort of baseline of V2K technology. I don't think I may have been exposed to that. I think I probably classify. I like to consider, maybe it's arrogance, that I've pretty much experienced all of these types of effects over the course of my dealings with it. It was kind of like my job. That said, on a personal perspective, when I use the term didactic, which is that when someone is issuing instructions or commands, that happened to me very clearly only once, whereby it was absolutely clear as day voice of one of my handlers to explain to me, this is what we've got, this is where we're going with this, and actually we think you're going to like it in the end, so just stick with it. And I was shocked and I was furious, because I did not invite that level of intrusion into my physiognomy. And I made it very clear on that day that I was not going to put up with that form of communication. And as a result, it was watered down heavily to the point whereby, and I also refused to give up my old methods. Call me old school, but the dead letter box was quite good for me. And I wasn't willing to abandon it completely. So
what he's referring to is what was in the magic jab, the graphene oxide, the silicon materials, copper, all of these metals that are amplifiers. So that is what he's referring to. What he also shared with me is we didn't get it in this interview, but when I initially started speaking to him, when he was in Oxford, in St. Alban, where our favorite bartender was, that was basically the hot zone where they were attacked by some type of foreign agency with this spike, funny looking, he said, spike protein. and he was assigned to work on it. And he also, they were told, because they were all exposed to this, that they should be taking silicates, which, interesting enough, is zeolite.
Now, Jesse, did that come up in the pre-call that we did? Remember?
Yeah, that was in the pre-call.
So it's funny. I forgot to mention that we have that recorded, the pre-call.
Oh, cool.
So we'll look for that. Yeah, we've been trying to find this soundbite, and I think this is obviously the anti of it, because he said that they took a substance which made it more effective. Yeah. And I don't think it's the Mandela effect. We seem to remember this came up either in the first or second interview that we asked if there was something that a diet or some kind of regime. I believe that he said that they told them, hey, don't eat this certain kind of food because it's going to make this less effective. And it being like greens and, as Jesse said, zeolite, the silicate. Yeah. So they didn't want them taking that because it made the process less effective. Well,
Yeah. How many total interviews did you guys do?
3 total. Yeah. The pre-call, and then we traveled to England. Here is the second one, the formal one. And then the third one was the day that he was scanned. And we did that back at our Airbnb. That's where some of the funny business happened. But the third, we got some more information, and we got into a little bit more of the esoteric kind of the implications of this capability.
And so is he staying localized to his house, the same town? He said he wasn't working right now, right? He's in this investigation hold.
Correct. Yeah, and I get the sense that he's independently wealthy. Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, because that part didn't make a whole lot of sense. We were listening back like, what does he mean that he just chooses not to work and he's pretty well? Like, oh, that must be nice.
And so he will not talk about this outside of the country, correct?
He can't leave the country.
He's not allowed.
Yeah, because he says if he were to do this out of the country, then he could be charged with espionage.
Okay.
Yeah.
But inside the country, it's okay.
Apparently, I walk gingerly. I don't want to get him in trouble. He's a hero for coming forward, and so I'm being considerate of that fact. But this was very, very important because it validated and vindicated a lot of the U.S. citizens who've been saying that the synthetic telepathy phenomenon, the voices being transmitted to their heads. This is an expert, Oxford educated with a PhD and a former MI6. He's a GS 14.
14. Yeah.
GS 14. So what? Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, forgive me if I didn't hear it, but did he say specifically that he had been hearing voices, or was it because I know he said like the static noise that would floor him?
That was when he didn't follow directions and they were punishing him. Okay. That's why he says it's multifaceted. But initially it was told to him this is only a clandestine communication device.
Okay. Is it a two-way?
Two-way.
Okay.
Absolutely. It reads your internal monologue. He can think in real time. Just imagine us being here, not talking, and communicating just by thought, telepathy.
Was he, so that's like directives. Was he receiving voices that had nothing to do with the job he was doing at the time?
No, everything was about the job.
From his handler. I think we do get into it here with him. It is definitely two-way
Communication.
Yeah, and that's the part that really set him off.
So he accepted that as part of the job, but what upsets him is the symptoms that came along with it, and obviously him and his wife getting cancer.
Well, that's not a pleasant part. In fact, it almost killed him, is what he says. But you'll hear it later on in the interview. He, quite frankly, when he realized how intrusive it was, he demanded that they stop.
Should we carry on?
Yeah.
Actually, it evolved. There were other ways of communicating, music. Music, different types of music was a useful one. Things that are clearly recognizable. And sometimes voice, but in a kind of, how do I put this? Indirect manner, as though you're overhearing something rather than someone talking to you. Yeah. And that is less invasive because you could maybe imagine yourself hearing a conversation of someone else describing something. But this has been not for some time. this would have been.
He's describing Ghost Whisper.
The heart rate, you heard that, right?
Is he right?
Yeah. Ghost murmur, yeah.
Ghost Murmur, yeah.
Can you guys explain what that is real quick?
Well, so the ghost murmur is a technology and a capability that the CIA appears to have exclusively developed about 10 years ago, has been employing now, most recently in Iran with the downed pilot. What it's able to do, past technology that you're probably familiar with in functional, operations, more than just a transmitter, more than just geolocator, it's able to take you down to the centimeter based on your unique frequency. And it's not so much the hearing the heartbeat, but it's the functionality of the heart generates a frequency that can then be found anywhere on Earth. It's not exactly like this, but the way I was able to kind of understand this, shortwave radio, for example, it's an odd thing about that frequency is that you can see it, you can hear it. Frequency transmitted from the other side of the planet. It's weak, it's off, but if you know what you're looking for, you can, and that's how they say sleeper cells and other things are potentially activated. But in this case, the unique frequency, every human being on Earth has this. It's amplified, in a sense, by the other kind of invasive technologies which have been applied, like the graphene oxide in the shots and maybe things that have been introduced to the world through chemtrailing and the food. But from my understanding, this technology now allows the CIA exclusively right now to find anyone in the world.
Yeah, using pulse microwave transmissions. And it will not work unless you've had those amplifiers put in your system.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably the last time, probably around 2019, something like that. However, since then, there have been other things, and so it is possible to alter someone's emotional responses to a particular stimuli, be it a word or an expression or the name of a country or so on.
Could even be a sound.
And it could be a sound. It could be really anything. And I believe that this is used to beat the polygraph or to alter a polygraph. So it's basically planting evidence.
Yeah.
Let me put it like that. And I saw it once and never again. You see, from personal experience, I can tell you that when you are suspected of espionage, foreign state actor, but not as an unaware agent, which I think is going to be the case more and more now, where, as we've talked about, you send a bunch of people in with implants they don't even know. That is the perfect spy. Why? Because it's completely deniable. You didn't need to get a warrant. If anything happens to them, they are none the wiser, and they will quite honestly say, I have really no idea what you're talking about. Perfect. But let's say that you have some formal training in tradecraft, and that would involve counter surveillance perhaps, and you are observed monitoring your surveillance and so on, and then the assumption arises, or rather hypothesis, is that you are a trained agent, and in which case the next question is, who trained you? And that requires it's a guessing game basically, and all different types of stimuli are applied to see if anything provokes a reaction. And it is in that context that I have seen evidence planting.
What kind of music would you hear?
Well, really, it's just so random. It wasn't even, for example, well, I don't think I should go into it exactly, because these were associated with real things, and I don't want to jeopardize or have that used in a way that is perhaps, but it's not sort of like the Billboard 100. It's not that kind of music. It is sounds, instruments, maybe like a quick refrain or something like that. I mean, so it's not much use if you have to like quickly be aware of something and someone has to play you a whole track. It's something like very rapid. I will say, when it comes to the issue of free will, that at certain points during that time, during the period of cooperation, I wouldn't have thought to complain or leave that situation. Prior to that, I was too afraid, because I didn't understand the capabilities, the motivations, where might this go? What is like the the worst outcome? And of course, the mind wanders. I think when I said the straw that broke the camel's back, that was really an apt expression, because it was at that point I just didn't care anymore. I was so angry and I was so furious that you could have assassinated me in the street. I wouldn't have cared. And that was where I was able to then go and take action to stop it. And it was only when I didn't care anymore. And so in a sense, is that free will? I don't know. When you've been completely broken, I didn't have any choice. I mean, ultimately, I had no choice. That's not to say, as I go back to it, that's not to say that for what I had to do, and I would never have volunteered for the thing that I had to do. But ultimately, I came to see it as good. I came to see it as necessary, and I came to see it as something I had to do. And since I had to do it, for whatever reason, I needed to use everything that was available to me, and this was available. Now, just to go back to the sound business, there are multiple ways of communicating in opportunities for espionage. So that could be receiving things from a hacked news feed. It could be from a message from a declared asset. It could be a message from a covert human intelligence source. It could be media, physical media that's passed to you in a location where you are definitely going to pick it up. It could be from a dead letterbox. That wasn't the only way that I was communicated. That was used when there was pretty much no other means of communication. My phone died, or I was out and about. I wasn't in touch with people, but it needed to be made known to me that such and such a situation was occurring, or, please do X. Actually, scrap the word please. Do X. I felt this was quite new here. And the reason why, and I was an assumption that I went through, because I think unaware assets, that's one thing. You don't need to train them because they are literally unaware, right? There's no health and safety to worry about. You don't have to worry about them going crazy. You don't have to worry about them trying to rip their teeth out or whatever it might be.
What's a sound laser?
So they're very expensive. And so in my field, the TSCM field, there are devices that can detect it, but you have to be really lucky sometimes. They're about $100,000, and it's basically a laser that you can point through glass, through a window, and this is how a lot of corporate espionage is done, and secrets are stolen, and it'll go through that, and you'll hear everything crystal clear, and you don't even have to have a listening device in the environment. You're just doing it externally.
Wow. What other kind of capabilities, like similar to that, have you heard about?
Well, this nano system, that is the most intrusive and the most covert system out there. Because just think, if you're law enforcement, there are certain hoops you have to jump through, like for getting a FISA warrant or getting a warrant, period. But if you put this system in someone who doesn't know, you circumvent all of the laws. Right. And so you basically, wherever that person is in their environment, is no longer secret. And you use the word, agencies can go back and reverse engineer.
Parallel reconstruction. Yeah. So in the era where the NSA was a conspiracy theory, the government's listening on every single thing. They're definitely doing that. The NSA, was a rumor, would listen in on the conversations of criminals were describing where they might conduct an operation or drop off a certain bag of drugs or money. And what the NSA would do is they reach out to the FBI or reach out to local law enforcement, tell them where to look. Don't say you heard it from us, but this is where you need to look. We guarantee you it's going to be this place. And then what you do is you can say, look, you found it, and then you have cause for prosecution. Now, of course, look, there are cases, I think everyone at this table will be like, wow, yeah, that's awesome. Put the bad guys in jail. But I think we brought this up, and Alex will bring it up here. It's not being used to find Nancy Guthrie. It's not being used to find all the missing children in this country. It's being used selectively. It's being used to kill Khomeini and 400 of the top leadership in Iran. It's being used to find a pilot. That's great. But it's not being used broadly to find people. It's being used selectively for the government, for their own agenda.
Of course. And then as far as what kind of energy does it take to operate these devices? Are there any limitations to maybe why they wouldn't want to do this on a very grand scale?
Well, we'll probably get into our interview with Dr. Cruz after Rafe. We go through Rafe, but it wasn't until our trip to El Salvador that it all made sense. And Dr. Cruz mentioned it briefly when we interviewed him, and you'll get to see that here because we giving you that material, where he talks about the digital ID system and why they're doing it. Without derailing where we're at right now, we'll get into that.
We can hold off on it.
Yeah, but the bottom line is there is a reason why they need to monitor every living organism on the planet.
And there's a reason why they're, have enacted a $1 trillion data center program. Because when you have this capability and you start thinking exponentially, at enterprise level, if you're able to listen in on the inner thoughts of every human being in your country, you're going to need massive AI capabilities to keyword search. And because they're not going to want to go through, there's physically not enough time in the day in the world to go through every single second of everyone's thoughts, but kind of like keylogging on the phone. They have this already. If you say a certain word on the phone call, that's how the NSA is catching stuff. They hear you say certain like terrorist, bomb, Austin, and through.
Oh, great! Now they're listening.
Yeah, but let's say you get on someone's the opposite political bad side of someone, or you piss someone off, and they want to look for a reason to come after you. That's all they're going to have to do is just pull that data, all your thought data. And then think about this. Future crimes, being prosecuted for a future crime, something that you were thinking.
For talking about or thinking about it, yeah.
I think they truly do believe that with enough accumulated data, they can predict a crime is going to happen or if you're going to commit one. Kind of like how Amazon is able to predict they need to ship a certain amount of products to a certain area, and that's how it's so quickly delivered, is they're making prediction. Way past that, if they think they can actually predict, Minority Report is truly their fantasy.
Right. Or just even public opinion. They don't have to wait for polls to come back or do sample sizes. They can just wait. How many times is everybody within this country thinking this or saying this particular word?
Well, Elon Musk admitted that. Not to go, I'll end with that and we'll go back to this. Elon Musk on election night, he went home. And he's admitted in an interview since the reason why he went home and had no worries about the election in 24 is he already knew the result. Because he looked at the cumulative data on X. And I'll tell you that there's a group called Block Trust IRA. Their technology about it is called Animus. The founder of that technology, his name is Max. And he showed me this technology in 24. He showed me he could predict essentially how a trade was going to go, how a geopolitical event was going to transpire. And he said it got freaky because like the CIA showed up and asked him if they could have the technology. Oh shit! And I told him when he told me, I was like, Max, please do not give this bloody app to the CIA. Like whatever they tell you, just please do not do that.
Can you imagine making something and the CIA shows up and is like, "Can we have this?" Fuck, bro.
You're looking at.
Oh yeah, exactly. Imagine Dragon right here. Yeah.
But let's not to get off topic. Just imagine then knowing neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, knowing how to erase a memory set, imprint a memory set with this technology. All that is very real and doable.
There's a term we came up with after the interview with Rafe. Manipulated reality, MR. You hear like virtual reality, manipulated reality. Because with this kind of capability and this kind of intrusion, you have a really hard time figuring out what's real and not real. Yeah. And they want you in that spot because they want to control your reality, your perspective.
What memories that you have in your brain are actually real and what was made up?
If you've had the vaccine, particularly if it's Pfizer or Moderna, you have this in you. If you had the PCR testing and you had that hydrogel that contained the graphene oxide, you have this in you. Once we realized that this is what we were facing, we were like, well, what are we going to do now?
I know you guys are able to find and remove some of these objects that are implanted in people, but with this newest stuff, you're saying it's at the nanoscale. So how are you going to remove stuff at the nanoscale?
With the nanotech, there is a solution, high-grade zeolite. Zeolite is usually found, and it's sourced at two locations, usually blue zones, areas where humans tend to live far longer and healthier. It has to have volcanic activity where the diatomaceous earth and the sea meet, and that's where they get this pure high-grade zeolite, which has a negative charge to it. When it's integrated into the human body, what it does is it binds to the graphene oxide, and so they've done studies now where they did a baseline, exposed people to the graphene oxide, and then what they see is that after about 90 days, it'll be down to a minimal level. Most people who are on this right now are saying they're having significant improvements in how they're feeling, the symptoms that they're getting, and it's and as much as over 50%. If you want to, this happens, and it's not to say that child abuse doesn't happen. We know that, especially with the Epstein files disclosure. It's sick, it's disgusting, and the bastards, quite honestly, if I had my way, you hurt a child, you don't deserve to be in society, period, or exist. Amen. Yeah. But utilizing how society protects children, we naturally do that, right? So then you start imprinting false memories into children into believing a scenario happened that didn't really happen. Psychologists do this currently by planting seeds in children. They're already in an altered state of hypnosis up until they start reaching 9, 10, 11. Then they start to transition out of that state. But it happens all the time.
Well, there was a scandal about 10 years ago. I remember covering this at True News. It was Sozo prayers. It was a ministry out in California. They got in trouble because they were doing these Sozo prayer kind of meditation meetings with kids. And the kids would leave the meeting thinking their parents like raped them and attacked them. And they got sued for this because the children, they're young, but it's a form. And Jesse's almost an expert on many of these different things, hypnosis, these other things. Of course, Jesse's ethical. These other people weren't. They were planting memories in people's heads. And these children's, their relationship with their parents were destroyed by it.
Are they still in operation?
I don't think so. No, I think that took them out. Yeah.
Shall we?
Yep.
But in the case that you are aware and conscious, it requires a lot of effort to keep that person from not like going into a flat spin and falling apart. I mean, it took me months to get used to this. Months. It from just to get my head around the idea that, it's possible. It's even possible to communicate like this. Like that alone is a mind-blowing fact if it's never been explained to you. And 10 years ago, no one was talking about this. I had no idea.
Do you think there's other agents, other handlers and agents using this?
Yeah, I think that most agents would probably be using something like this. Nowadays, in terms of, you don't see people walking around with an earpiece, do you? And in fact, when I have talked in the past to someone operating under a false identity, who I happen to know, who declared themselves to me, when I spoke with that person, there was a pause where it felt as though, actually, they're just discussing, okay, I've received this information. What do you want me to say now? And that was, with hindsight and reflection, that was why I believe they paused. And so it kind of made me think that actually, I think people do volunteer to have this. But if you're going in and you have a contract with the government, and you have health and safety, you have psychological counselors, you have the ability to go and you've been told what they can and can't listen into. You have the ability to go and get them to take it out or deactivate it or what have you. It's a totally different situation. You've already been vetted. So the government already knows about your deepest, darkest secrets. You've got nothing to hide. It's that provides a framework in which it's reasonable. Maybe more reasonable. I don't know who would choose to do it really. It's a very unusual experience, really unusual. And I don't know whether I'd recommend it.
Oh, sure. With the voices, do you remember any orders or any what was said to you? And what did the voice sound like? It was like your handler was
standard English, sort of posh British, sort of slightly dismissive, but trying to convince me that somehow it was all going to be okay, and in fact it was going to be fine in the end, and I'll like it, like, because for whatever reason, well, we've got something good in store for you, don't worry. And if you don't like it, well, I'm sure you will, kind of thing.
Was it really loud? Was it quiet?
No, it is just a voice that becomes present in your head. It's the most weird thing. And as I say, it was extremely invasive. And so I only responded with expletives, and I told them that, that I considered this just to be, I think I used the word evil. You don't just come in at any time you like. Stockholm syndrome, absolutely. And I think that is one of the key things that goes through your mind. Couldn't agree more. Whoever said that has got it nailed. And in fact, I've thought that. Yeah. And it took me a long time to get past that at the end as part of my, recovery, to be able to put in a formal complaint about this. Yeah. At the beginning, nothing looked good about this.
Correct.
Absolutely nothing. And it was only when I was, had a baptism of fire with regards to the other form of directed energy that I was like, ooh, okay, I now understand why I need this. And I now understand why they've been trying to get me to do this rather than use the dead letterbox. But I didn't stop. I mean, I don't know, something inside just said, just carry on doing this and in this way.
So now they've got, where did you imagine the handler was when he was doing, sitting at his desk?
Somewhere in Whitehall. I don't know. I've no idea. Actually, I didn't really think about it too much.
Do they maybe Jesse too? Does it require special equipment for them to?
Oh yeah, it does. Sure.
Transmit it. The person who's giving the orders.
I'm sure it does. I mean, it presumably uses this interferometry, which is basically you have two fields, or two electromagnetic emitters, in this case microwaves. They're from a coherent source, but there are two of them, and they slightly offset to one another. So they create a kind of field of two lines, which has a feedback. So you move around in the field, and you are producing.
Or you're in phase, or
yeah, exactly. You are interacting, or the field is interacting with your fields, and therefore it then scatters back information, which is then picked up, and then that's how you make a hologram, in fact. But that's with optical light, and that's the principle. Now, that presumably is, it's an electric field. It's resonating with some resonance frequency with whatever it is that they managed to install in the old days. I think the communication via the Frey effect, I don't know whether that's my understanding. I think that was in the very early days that the initial studies did communicate very short bursts of modulated frequency that did produce a sound via the Frey effect. But I don't think that was used certainly not in my case. It's somehow demodulated with an amplifier or whatever. I can't remember which science fiction writer it is, but maybe it was Asimov. They said a machine can never be held accountable, so a machine should never make a management decision. And I think that is very true, because only a human can truly understand the ethical dimension. Now they play fast and loose with that, really. Loopholes, legal loopholes, ethical workarounds and what have you. And to some extent, there's an internal logical consistency to the way they operate. Can't fault it in some senses. But without that, well, where's the handbrake, man? I think then you're starting to get into really dodgy territory. I think there's an element of reality, which is that this is a fact, and it's a fact of modern day contemporary security. There is no way that an intelligence service can ignore it. And in fact, if they're not fully conversant in it, well, then they won't be doing their job to keep the citizens safe. That is just the reality. We'll be taken for a ride. And I think that that is tested on a don't know, frequent basis, but a periodic basis. And if there are gaps, we're in trouble. This is the modern day reality. And, you know, the frontiers of tradecraft and espionage are such that really there is nowhere really to hide anymore. That's just a fact. But if you don't play to it, then we'll lose. And so again, I can't in a way fault it, even though my experience has at times been less than pleasant. And the only way we're going to be able to navigate it is if it is acknowledged and that there's a public debate. But if the public all say, no, we don't want this, then we're in a situation whereby maybe we lose the upper hand. The big question is, how can it be regulated such that the system is not unnecessarily or wantonly abused? Because that remains a real possibility. I see things online of people going, oh yeah, I'm going to build myself an LRAD for my home security system. There's no one to say no, because actually, as far as I'm aware, I don't even think they're fully acknowledged. The capabilities of these systems are not fully acknowledged. Okay, so we're going to have the Wild West, are we? And I think we need to be serious about acknowledging the capabilities, not everything, but the main points. And I think that will set the, hopefully set the guidelines and also provide some comfort to people. I'm mindful that I'm not your typical AHI, I think, person. And I've heard a number of stories since I've become aware of it. And many things I recognize as part of this toolkit. And, I can't speculate really as to why some of these people would be targeted. We've talked and I have various ideas. But there should be pathways that take them seriously. The default assumption that someone's just completely, is making it up is no longer valid. It cannot be. As soon as you can use a very basic sound laser to point it at someone's head and create a voice in their head, that's the end. That should be the scientific end point of being able to tarnish people with, the immediate first-line treatment protocols for, say, a psychiatric illness based on an internal voice. That's no longer the case. It can't be. That's not scientific. It's not medicine, and it's certainly not helpful. There must be a way to disambiguate that, and until that becomes possible, I unfortunately don't see a satisfactory ending for a lot of those people. Until it at least partially acknowledged, there's no hope of being able to formulate rational or sound legislation to deal with it. Otherwise, it has to be dealt with obliquely or indirectly or with weasel words around the real capabilities. If it's not acknowledged and you have to deal with things indirectly and the wording in legislation is generalized and fluffy, then actually that is just very fertile ground for loopholes and exploitation. And that's just going to perpetuate the situation. I think a certain amount of the technology should be recognized. And so far, well, I've been amazed actually at the leaps and bounds that the civilian community have covered, the ground they've covered in terms of machine learning interpretation of electrograms of human thought and cognition, and that's extremely impressive. Likewise, the use of electrodes to codify and translate brainwave signals to text and speech and commands, and that's all happening. It's peer-reviewed. It's a fact. And at some point, the number of electrodes is going to decrease from 64 to 32 to 16 to 8, all the way down to 1. And at that point, and I mean, it's a bit like Moore's law, isn't it? Every day, every year, it's doubling. Well, we are moving at a rapid pace now.
We've superseded Moore's law.
Yeah, and I think that it's only a matter of time that it will become common practice in the civilian world with, opportunities for, for patients and so on. And there will be nice, appropriate civil uses for the technology. But at that point, you have to, everyone can legitimately ask the question and say, okay, well, if we have these technologies, what can be done with them? How can they be exploited by bad actors who want to control, manipulate, send us to do things that we don't want to do, somehow negatively influence or impact us? And so we either have some form of acknowledgement, or we just have to wait. And fortunately, it looks like that process is it's an exponential almost acceleration towards that. I mean, it's a race, right? Yeah. I mean, you've got Meta AI and all these other companies. They are racing to do this because they've rightly, and maybe they understand already.
It's the last frontier.
Last frontier. And they probably, their insiders, technical specialists, probably know already. We know how to do this. Let's roll it out. What I would say to humanity is that, unfortunately, for right or for wrong, this is a fact. This is the world we live in. And there are probably some incredible opportunities to help blind people see, deaf people hear, help people who've been completely paralyzed, bring people out of comas, allow people to have even deeper human connection, faster communications, longer range communications, better insight into things that we might be interested in. But with that ability, and it sounds cliched, with the power comes great responsibility. And at the moment, we have very few safeguards. And the reason is that is a lack of acknowledgement. And until certain facets of this technology have been acknowledged, everything legislation, policies, and so on will fall short. They will be exploitable. They will not be sufficient for the task of providing the protection that we deserve in democratic human rights or constitution respecting countries. And so my advice, which is that if you want to have safeguards, is to maybe set aside some of the doubts you may have and understand how peer-reviewed science, as it stands today, can already be manipulated for nefarious purposes. And to say, well, just because we can do it in a lab doesn't mean we'd do it to our other people. Like, that's not an assumption that I think you should hold to. I mean, definitely, if the tools are there, then they can be used, and they can be used for good or they can be used for bad. But until it's acknowledged, we have a blind spot. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, there's a lot to process in all of that. I think we talked a little bit in the break. Everything, obviously, we're going to play something on here. The audience doesn't know this guy. I don't know the guy. So you can only really base your interpretation on what you're watching based off of whether or not you believe he's believable, because what he's saying is unbelievable. And even though we've touched on it on our podcast with you, we've more than touched on it. Hearing it from somebody on the other side of the pond, it's immediately, I know my audience, they're going to start picking this guy apart, right? Because that's the first thing you do when you hear something that's so extraordinary that it can't be true in your mind.
It's cognitive dissonance.
Yes, cognitive dissonance. And, my first interpretation, and if I'm being honest, is that this guy, it's almost like he's rehearsed this 100 times. Like, there's very little mistakes in his sentences and his paragraphs I'm just saying that's my first, the first thing that I noticed when he was speaking and as he was speaking throughout the entirety of the video. But it's not like what trumps that is how much he knows about all of this. So unless he was trained specifically on this, I don't know how long it would take to train somebody for an interview to answer every question and know it inside and out. It's almost damn near impossible for this guy to be lying. So that's my consensus from what I just watched.
Yeah, and I would concur with you. But you're sitting across the table with someone who has 20 years experience in researching this phenomenon. And I always, even when I meet someone who claims that they're experiencing this, I always approach it with open-ended questions. I don't seed anything because I want to see what they're going to tell me. And there's always specific things that someone who's experienced, you can only say from the experience of going through it. And he checked all the boxes in spades.
Can you give us a couple examples of those?
So when he talks about, so we know Sean Ryan interviewed AJ. AJ could, and I know AJ's a victim. He's already been diagnosed, and he's getting help by the federal government because he was a federal employee, and there's resources for federal employees. But what Rafe said, and you're sitting across the table from an experiencer, that would be me. And that's why I got involved in this topic publicly in 2010. But I knew the environment wasn't correct in order to tell the world that this is real, this is happening. So I decided to prove it for other people first, and that's why we had the Bonnie Kellerby case. Right. Yep. And I take statistics, and I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of victims. Okay. When Rafe talks about being at that sink and being fried, you can only know what that is unless you've experienced it yourself. So imagine every single cell on your body being zapped with electricity at once. What happens is you have a complete contraction of every muscle instantaneously, and it stays locked up. Mm-hmm. You can't breathe. Right. You feel like you're going to die. You don't, and I'm an expert at reading body language, knowing where the lie cues are coming from, where the truth cues are coming from. You can only know that with training. And Rafe did not lie. Rafe, you can only say the things he said unless you've experienced it. Sure. Period.
Right. Yeah. But if I'm playing devil's advocate, these stories that he's telling of experiences that he had, he could have learned those. If you're being real, he could have learned that what you just told me right there. He could have been taught, hey, this is the symptom. This is what happens to these guys. This is what you're going to say in this scenario. I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying if you're looking at both sides of this,
it's being objective,
because it's either real or it's not, and that's what the audience is going to be questioning.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's not real. My question is he real? Is he telling the truth? And is this some sort of psyop that he's playing, being a part of MI6? And now that this information is getting out to the public, them trying to take advantage of how the narrative is being spun.
So, but there wasn't no spinning of a narrative, and I would concur, because everything that you're saying, I'm checking. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for signs of deception. I'm looking for signs of counter espionage. I'm looking, was he trying to get any information from me? No, he didn't. He was interested in the types of equipment that I was using, yes. Mm-hmm. But there was always that possibility, but it wasn't going to benefit them because the real secrets that I have are here in the States.
Right, but sometimes it's just feeding a narrative of what level your intelligence or your technology is at, and making the world think that you are at this level when in reality you're here, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're first to the punch and you're the ones that are going to go out and put out public videos and get on documentaries and whatnot before anybody else does, you can kind of like present yourself as if you're at the top in the tech with this stuff when in reality you're not. And so that right there could be spinning the web of it's a lie, but it's a tactical lie, because other countries, potentially enemy countries, would be less likely to fuck with the company if they think that their technology is superior than their own. Correct? Right? And in technology to this level is capable of a lot, right? This is capable of stealing all of the all of the intelligence information without even lifting a finger. And so obviously, if I'm a country and I have an intelligence agency within the government, this is going to be at the top, one of the top concerns that we have. And how do we combat this? How do we control the interpretation of what our country is capable of, and the direction we're going? Because as soon as this gets in the hands of your competition, whether allies or enemies, it presents you as a potential victim. If that makes sense. And so I'm not saying what he's saying is not real. I'm just haven't quite been sold that he is real.
Well, we can say this, is his lawsuits are public record, what he has against Parliament. He did have substantial evidence that he presented to us. Everything that we checked in his background panned out. And including, like I said, there were some things about him that I knew that he didn't know. And then I would just, do the rope-a-dope. I've been a sworn public officer, worked with law enforcement, and we know how to interrogate people. Some people do it with finesse, some people do it other ways, the good cop, bad cop analogy. And I didn't see any means of deception at all. I saw shock at times, just because of the questions that I had asked and how I had asked them throughout the interviews. But and that was my read. I don't know, what was your read?
Well, I'd say that we were constantly judging whether the things we're seeing are real. I think the things we're hearing are real because it sounds crazy. It sounds absolutely out there. Well, I think of one. For sure, his readings when you did the scans, that's objectively real, right? Yeah. Jesse's the one conducting it. It's popping up with a positive detection when he's doing the scan, and it's in the location that he said that it would be. So that's something we can look at. The second thing, this could be planted, right? We'll give it that. But when we went to the bathroom in this location, I think I'm good to share this. You think, yeah?
Yeah. Sure.
Well, we went to the bathroom in this location, and it's his home, or at least like his girlfriend's home or something, his mom's place. The bathroom, and I don't know if any of you guys did this stuff, Shawn. I don't know what your bathroom looks like. Maybe you got a bunch of pictures of you. Okay, well, this will go there. The bathroom, it's tiny. It's a British house, right? The walls are plastered with photos from his missions. And you're sitting down in there, you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck? You got pictures from all of the Middle East. You got him, of course, with his beard, and he's skinnier than he was here. He's not in terrible shape here, but he's skinnier. And it's with all his teams and all his people. And, we take photos like that to remember it. I mean, you got some photos here in the studio, and that's why we do it. You're not putting them on Facebook per se, but you got them in your studio. Because his place, his bathroom was, I guess, where you remember this, but it's nowhere else in the house. There's no other photos from his time. Now, that could be that, let's think about it.
Right.
All right. The one place we would go, right, is the bathroom, right? So maybe that was planted for us to see it. Okay, that's one. Two, maybe it is the place he goes to solitude to remember some of this stuff because it was traumatic and he wants to remember some of the experiences. Okay, the third thing. So some of the technology he was talking about was before, obviously, the revealing of the ghost murmur. Yeah. And since this, Jesse's checked in with his sources. I checked in with mine too. There are things that Rafe was sharing in here that are definitely not public. They're still not public. Mm-hmm. He shared it very, very naturally, as if he already had knowledge of these things. Right. So that kind of brings credence to that he either knows someone that is aware of this technology being true. Let's say he's a mimic, right? Or it actually is true. Mm-hmm. And I think the fourth thing is, when you're when you're in the presence of somebody, you're kind of touching, you're looking at them eye and eye, and you're kind of experiencing, this interview together. Sure, someone can lie through these things, but when he was describing the trauma, the experience of being attacked, that the very human level felt very real. Right. So unless he is a trained actor, that it felt as if he was reliving the trauma. We talked about this at the beginning of the interview. It's why look, the modern era with cameras and documentary equipment is so awesome, because for sex crime victims and others. I saw this with the Epstein victims. We interviewed and did a lot of work with Maria Farmer. She's the first Epstein victim to come forward, reported Les Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein. I felt terrible every time I'd interview her and ask her, and I'd used to see her do these interviews. She stopped doing interviews because every interview was a re-victimization. When you realize that, you're like, damn, I feel guilty for these people having to keep telling their stories. In this case, I saw the same thing with Rafe, that he's reliving the trauma, now describing it to us. Sure, these things can be manufactured, but
there's one thing that can't be.
Yeah.
And that's ideomotor reflexes.
That's right. Yes.
And
so we shot him like 6K on this shot.
Yes.
So after, and you'll share this, I was able to zoom in on the very thing that he's describing here, and it's real. Like you can see on 6K on his eyes, he can't control that. Yeah.
So an ideomotor reflex is something that's subconscious. Under hypnosis, you can put people in deep state of trance, and the subconscious, I can create a human lie detector where I'll give you an example. So here I'm consciously raising my pointer finger. Okay, goes like that. Now it's going to be hard to mimic, but if the subconscious is doing it, you'll see a twitch. Okay, and so when he's talking about some of these emotional experiences, I caught the ideomotor reflex. I go, wait, that's an ideomotor reflex. I go, stop the frame. Okay, so just and again, I don't expect a layperson to know these things, but someone with my training and background would see these things. And these are all because the 93% of language comes from the body.
Yeah, and how is he being from his own community? How is he being received by coming out with all this? I can't imagine. Like, I was in the military, you were in the military. I mean, these are state secrets, and these are potentially things that could get guys hurt or killed within your own community. And so OPSEC it's blasphemy if you're giving up something that could potentially hurt people or hurt the country. So how is he being received?
Well, I'd say that that story is to be told now. I think up until this past week, generally speaking,
He's never shared it with anyone.
He's never given an interview like the Daily Mail or with the British media. Wow. The soundbites being played on Alex Jones's show and now your podcast, it's the first time this is really being shown. And, I think if it gets picked up, we will see. And it's the British military community, this maybe better than I do, but I think this is correct. It's different than the American military community, where there's far more people like you that are running a podcast who used to be a Navy SEAL.
Oh, really?
I don't know many SAS. I mean, you got Bear Grylls. You got you don't have people like Sean Ryan or you and others that are basically producing media, and so there isn't really that public aspect of it. At least with the British Special Forces people I've run into, half these guys when they retire, they go off to Malta, they go off to Patagonia. They just go somewhere quiet, and it's different. So it's hard to grasp, but I think we might see, especially if this gets a lot of attention. You're going to see how the British press, the tabloids, are going to respond to this because it went viral yesterday. Yeah. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I don't think the British government is going to want to see this get exposed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because that lawsuit is there, and this guy is very tactical.
Well, that I think is his calculation. Yeah. I think that his calculation is this gets attention. I think he said something along these grounds in the third interview. He said something. I was like, what did he just say? Okay, I think, and just this is what it is. He's a hero for coming out too, but also he's got to take care of his family. I think he's thinking, cha-ching, it's payday the second this goes viral because they're just going to settle this legal action. He was looking at us. He said something along the lines of like, he was like, "Oh, this is going to put a lot of pressure on them."
I mean,
you know,
he was very
frank. Yeah.
very frank about it. That he wanted to make sure that I had access to platforms that this could get distributed to millions of people at once. And I said, well, we're making a movie.
Right.
I mean, a documentary. I can't say movie because then I'll have issues in the future. But a documentary about the truth. Yeah.
Speaking of Bear Grylls, we did an op in Afghanistan, and we did a joint op with the British, and we rode these dudes around. But while we were kitting up to start the op, I went over to a couple of the guys, and I was just chatting them up, and I asked them what they thought about Bear Grylls, and the guy's like kitting up, and he goes, "Oh, mate, it's a soul subject."
Well, look, they're much more discreet. I mean, you might have read and probably heard some stories, from when you were in. The Brits, they've done some operations. Like I've heard about the infamous one in Iraq, where they pretended to be like Arab insurgents, and they actually either attacked or infiltrated like an American base, and they did it for whatever the operations that you control. But they are much more. I would say this is a little bit on my depth. I'll say it appears to me they're much colder about carrying out some really crazy orders and actions than the Americans that I've run into. And I know the Americans can be cold too. I get it, but they're a different level. Right. You know, that they will go and commit some heinous, crazy act against some family or something like that, and it's just chalk it up to you got to do what you got to do. You know,
And that's exactly it, non-emotional. And you can see that killer instinct in his eyes. There's no doubt that he's capable of, getting shit done. Yeah.
I mean, I commend him for coming out. If everything's squared, good on you. That's definitely sticking your neck out there, especially in the middle of a lawsuit. Because, he must know, he must feel pretty confident about what this is going to do, whether provide him leverage for them to finalize this, or maybe he's giving the tip of the iceberg of information that he knows, and this is a warning that,
Well, at the end of the interview, you heard him say, he's like, "Oh, I think it was going to come out anyway," kind of thing. It's like that I just heard that for the first time. It clicked for me. Did he know, one, that more of the Havana syndrome, victims are coming forward, but more so that it had been a calculation essentially with President Trump in, that he's going to start using some of these capabilities. I mean, look, that's the reason why we know of two of these. UC said there's many different flavors of this technology. We know about the discombobulator. All right, that's real now. That's been basically blurted out by President Trump mid briefing. Then now we know about the ghost murmur. Again, and you've heard.
We didn't hear about Ghost Murmur. This was done before it.
This is well before.
This was well before Ghost Murmur.
So what does he what is he expecting going forward now with what he's divulging?
He's hoping that the whole world sees that this is real. This is happening, and he said he was hoping that he could help humanity in this way.
Is he worried for his safety, his family?
Yes, he'd be. He's very transparent about that, but he says he's really has no choice.
Yeah. How old are his kids?
Little baby, little girl.
Little baby, and he's still doing this.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's made the calculation that whatever he's done up until now has gotten him nowhere on getting this resolved and getting any help. It's not like in America, we at least have a Havana syndrome, commission. As you said, there's money and help going to some of the government employees that have been hit with this around the world. This is not even real, right? But that's also I think the Achilles heel, frankly, of it to a degree, is that because it's denied everywhere else in the world, some of the victims can really turn the tables on their governments.
Yeah, and I forgot where I was going to go with it, but I think the other thing to remember: this guy is GS-14, a lieutenant, equivalent to what a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
And to have someone like that come forward is huge.
Yeah. Where do you guys see this technology going? What's the next evolution of this?
Well, we can go deep down the rabbit hole. We just came back from El Salvador with Dr. Cruz, and he disclosed why we're having the system.
You want to get into that?
Actually, how long is his? It's only like 3 minutes, right?
Yeah. I put.
He has it. Yeah, let's play it real quick.
Yeah. Well, I was going to share one thing with the capability. And it is simply that, we were talking earlier about predictive algorithms, right? You can predict trades, you can predict political outcomes. I think that the next major use of this is going to be one with regime change. I think that if this capability is known, that you can change the population's perspective about something, that it's going to be attempted to use to change public sentiment in a country, whether it be domestically in America or in the third world. But in America specifically, I think this might be used for election interference. That you no longer have to spend a bunch of money for propaganda and media and these other things, or run your candidates and run them through lobbyists. The cleanest possible way now to impact an election, whether it be through a Manchurian candidate or through changing the minds and the decision making, the voting of the populace, is that they just change your mind through technology like this.
Or change your memories of what happened.
You use quantum computing now that are processing just huge, unimaginable amounts of data at once.
What if Kamala didn't lose? And you're able to just swap memories.
Her mother was a prodigy for the MK Ultra program. And she teaches at, she's a professor at Berkeley.
Do you want to do the extinction level of that?
Yeah, that's the one. Because that explains why everyone needs to be tracked.
Gosh, yeah, that was so great. He's into a lot of conspiracies and things, right? He chose to, he's basically said the only thing that matters now is this. He said he's a big advocate for transparency on the damage from the shots and these other things. He said the only thing that matters now is this. That's how serious what he shared with us is.
And this is, who is this?
This is Dr. Cruz, Jack Cruz. He's a neurosurgeon. He actually, during his residency, found the missing file of the MK Ultra program. Dulles ordered everything burned, but this was misfiled.
During his residence?
During his residency as a medical student.
And he's a Bitcoin billionaire. It's not well known. I think he's kind of inferred this. They prefer for me to share this. He was one of the major donors that came in 2024 to pay for RFK Jr.'s campaign debt. RFK had about $50 million in campaign debt before he could come into HHS. And he was one of two. I think Nicole Shanahan was the other one that basically paid like $25 million to cover out the debt. So he's a big hitter, especially down there.
Yeah.
Let's check this out.
We are in a sixth extinction event. That's what's happening. And we're going to be the animals that get taken out first. The animals that are going to survive this event are going to be underneath the ocean. The magnetic shield of Earth protects us from deuterium coming down from space and tritium. You can go from having normal cognition in literally 3 or 4 months to being completely unconscious. The doctors are going to be impotent to fix this. The magnetic shield of the Earth has changed in Siberia 335 nanotesla in 20 years. Just so you know, that's 320 million years of change prior to this. I didn't think it was possible for the Earth to change this fast, but there is something that's happening to the things that live on top of this planet that are signaling what's going down inside the planet. So what am I telling you? It's happening way faster than even I thought. And I know the government knows this, and I know they're planning for it. That's why they're building a bunker under the White House. Yeah. But guess what? The White House is not where you want to be. You want to be in a place where the magnetic flux is off the chain so that you keep the vortex going. But they're too stupid to know that. They're pushing the space thing because they think they need to get somewhere else. I don't think they have as much time anymore. Right? Wow. I think they thought they had more time than they do. When you get deuterated or tritiated, you are more EMF sensitive. Autism, more infertility, more neurodegeneration. And when you understand the fertility part, the leptin melanocortin pathway, what controls for fertility and fecundity, that's how you know this is an extinction event. It is going after our ability to have children. Why? Because the mother spins its deuterium into the baby. The baby then deuterates all these CH3s. And remember, people that are hypermethylated, they also get cancer. So do I believe that childhood cancers are going to explode in places that have low magnetic flux? The answer is yes. And I think what governments are worried about this information gets out, you're going to have 8 billion people wanting to go to certain places. And then guess what? All hell's going to break loose. This is the reason why I think digital ID is in. Because they want to control people from leaving and not going international.
Oh, shit.
There's going to be certain places where fucking everybody's going to go. And then remember what happens then. Then you outstrip resources. And you know what it becomes then? It becomes you two in the Pacific Ocean. He's drowning, you save him, and you're a good swimmer. He can take you down. That's how a government thinks. Remember, they're thinking about their survival. The takeaway from this is learn about your local magnetic field. And then understand this vortex is tied to this magnetic field, but it's also tied to the sun.
Okay, Jesse, break this down.
So the bottom line is the Earth's magnetic shield, the thing that protects us from radiation, is depleting. And there are only going to be a few safe zones on this planet. And when he talks about the digital ID, those safe zones are the green zones. We're going to be doing a global triage. There won't be no yellow and red anymore. It's only going to be black and green. Green is those are the walking, the ones that are going to be saved, and everything else is going to be black.
Okay, explain more in detail. Go back. What's this extinction level event? When's it going to happen? How is it going to affect the populations around the Earth?
Okay, so let me finish this thought. What he's talking about, the safe zones, are the areas where you have this high density magnetic flux that still can protect you from radiation. The people that are in those spots are the only ones that are going to live. That's one of the rare places that food is going to be okay to eat. Everything else around the globe is going to be radiated to a point where people are going to be dying very rapidly. They're going to be eating the contaminated foods, so you're going to be burning from the inside out. If you had 9 billion people wanting to go to those green zones, that's what he's talking about. Right. So this is why you need the digital ID. They want to track those who are radiated. I see. And you're not going to be allowed in those green zones. That's the black.
And then how is this nanotech? Obviously, they're going to use it to track digital ID. But what else is going on with this?
You know, I've been thinking about this long and hard because, you know, before we went to that interview, he says, I haven't been able to sleep for 3-4 days. When I saw the data and saw that it's happening much more rapidly, it's not, if we were to graph it, you know, over 300 million years, we'd have a graph that looks something like this. He goes, but the graph is like this now. It's a vertical line. So anywhere between 5 and 30 years.
And we're talking about a pole flip, basically.
No, it's not about the pole flip. That is happening. So you have a magnetic shift from the North Pole that's going from west to east. Yeah. And eventually they predict it's going to be over Russia. Okay. But it's the protection, the force field, the magnetic flux that protects us, that keeps the radiation out, is what's depleting. And so you're only going to have a few areas on the globe. All of Canada is going to be wiped out, he says.
And so why isn't more people noticing what he's noticing?
They are. The elites and the scientific communities who are keeping this under wraps. There are some people who are vocal about it and have been saying that this has been happening for some time. But society doesn't get it. And he says, you know what, I'm not sure if I should share this information. I prayed about it, but I'm going to do it on your interview. And he goes, I'm going to share it with you because the truth needs to be said.
Well, there are data points that are public, but I mean, this is true. It's a testament, I think, of where we're at as a human species. You know, we're using AI to look up the dumbest things in the world. You know, the public is literally focused on bread and circuses, right? Barely even can figure out what's going on with the world past our politics. You could theoretically use AI to tap into the NOAA data to get this. And probably right now, if you were to look it up on your phone, you could have it run, look up the NOAA, because he did it. Mm-hmm. But we're not even thinking to look at that. He did it. We looked at it. There is public data to back up what Dr. Jack Cruz is saying.
Yeah, he said the shift was you said around 33.2 kilometers per year, but I looked up the data because I was fact checking everything he said, and he was spot on in everything except for that one. It's actually larger than that. It's 42.3 kilometers per year. The pole is shifting. That is over 120 miles a year.
Wow. And that would kind of explain a lot what's going on with these different countries and the tumultuous last few years we've had. Some very strange decisions when it comes to borders being left open and everybody being allowed to go one direction. Wouldn't that be something if they opened it up on purpose so they knew millions of people would flood through this end to this side when in actuality they're leaving the sanctuary that's going to protect them?
And look, so I got something to say.
Well, we're not even talking about the potentiation.
No. Like, so you think about the decision in the 2015, 2016 to open up the Schengen zones in Europe. Now, as part of my time as a White House correspondent for True News, we got to go to Davos when President Trump spoke there. I remember at dinner, we were speaking, this is before the pandemic, before anyone talked about freaking Grok and ChatGPT and all this stuff, functional AI. It was almost a joke when we'd hear the tech elite and the people like Klaus Schwab, which we got the chance to hear. We got the chance to hear Yuval Noah Harari, the homosexual Jewish fella who said that there's going to be predictive algorithms that can tell if your kids are going to become gay. Right? And this is he wrote Homo Deus and some books that Angela Merkel, Barack Obama, people, they're very excited about these things. Anyway, so we had them talk, and we heard a lot of these people talk. Sitting at dinner in Switzerland, we asked, like, okay, what if these elite are not idiots? What if they've had access to supercomputers and AI for tens of years ahead of us, and they've run this algorithm, and they know that, okay, we're not going to be able to explain this, but the algorithm and the AI and the supercomputer is telling us we must flood Europe with immigrants. Doesn't matter why. This seems like suicide, but we got to do this. We got to flood military-age males from the Middle East into Europe. And by the same tone of this, I think the elite are working with a lot more data than we have access to. Right? We have access to an incredible swath of data now compared to people even 100 years ago.
But it is censored, and we know that.
That's right. And even 20 years ago, you could find things on the internet you can't find now. But where I'm going with this is we're sitting at dinner, we're having this conversation about, like, wait a minute. What if you take a perspective that the AI and the supercomputers are actually advising the elite, and that they are making decisions as world leaders, not knowing why they're making them, but they just trust the supercomputer and the AI, so they can do it. So we think about this. We have this concept now. We do trust the AI. You and I will look something up and we're looking, if we're smart, we're looking for reference material, but we trust it enough to guide us to the best restaurant. We trust it enough to book for us. And sometimes people are using it for the taxes and other things now, right? We trust it so much. Just imagine if they had that same AI 10 years ago, they would have the same assurance.
Which most likely they did.
And exactly. And so you start thinking about that. Why would we go into Afghanistan and Iraq? It doesn't make necessarily that much sense to people like us. But to them who have access to large swaths of information and this AI was running it. So now you go to this. If they know these things are happening, and it's been happening, as we heard from Dr. Cruz, it's been happening exponentially. It's the increase. You ask, when is it going to happen? I asked them the same question. He said 25 to 50 years. But he doesn't know because it's not at a steady rate anymore. It's exponentially increasing.
It's vertical.
It's vertical.
It's literally vertical.
So he estimates 25 to 50 years. Let's say 20 years ago, you knew this started. You're advising the government of how, continuity of government. You're advising how American can survive. I mean, craziest part of what he told us was, if there are American elite that know this, hell yeah, they're trying to get off the planet because America's not going to survive. There is no spot other than...
Or you go underground.
Or you go underground.
And build a 10,000 square foot underground bunker like Zuckerberg's building in Hawaii.
Building bigger than that, too.
Yeah.
So I mentioned Hawaii. So there were a couple places that apparently anywhere near volcanoes and volcanic activity someplace.
But Hawaii was not going to make it.
Hawaii said no.
You'll be surprised at the safe place. I think I don't know if we mentioned this at dinner last night. It's Bill Gates' territory is going to be one of the very few places on the United States that's going to be safe, and that's Seattle.
Yeah.
And so people that are living in these green zones, they're going to be able to go outside, live their life as normal. Yeah. They're going to be able to plant crops in these areas.
But I'll bet you any money they're going to be heavily protected.
Well, let's go here for a second. All right. So Jack Cruz lives in El Salvador. He said the reason why he's staying in that place is because of this very, discovery. What's just happened in El Salvador? 5 years ago, You and I wasn't going to go unless I had 5 of you with me. Okay. That's what.
Yeah, it's pretty pleasant right now, isn't it?
It's safer than here.
Safer than here.
It's safer than here. They literally killed or put in jail any bad guy. Okay. We're talking about 1/5 of the population just.
Yeah, and they are afraid to do any crime there.
Yeah. Isn't this guy worried that by divulging this, he's going to become overcrowded there?
Well, he prayed. He said he prayed upon it, and
And he did actually say that to us. He's like, I really don't want to. But he's like, he feels guilty. And I think this was correct. He said this in the interview. He's got family in America. His concern is, and I think it's the concern of all the guys here, we have a hard time convincing our significant others of doing things sometimes, right? And he's having a hard time convincing his family that they know he's not crazy because they're living off his Bitcoin billions. He knows it. Dad's rich, but is Dad correct on this?
Yeah. Is there any way to reverse this or pause this or stop?
Yeah, actually, there's one big thing.
well, yeah, it's not what you're thinking when he says this. You know, God is the ultimate program. I've always said this. You know, they're trying to create this AI God to replace our Creator. He says, what could happen is that Earth could be hit with a solar flare that will wipe out all ability to use electricity. Everything will be zapped.
Carrington event.
Yeah. And it's happened.
Referring to what happened in the 1800s where an X flare did and knocked out power.
Which means that we go back to square one, right?
So it would have to be a permanent flare that wipes everything out, fries everything.
Fries everything.
Wait, he
the
did say-
system would be done. There, no one would be.
Well, don't you think they would go to that extreme?
Maybe.
No, that's God. That would be God.
He means if they could try to artificially do it. Maybe. Who knows?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I guess you would.
We'd have to. You'd have to have power of the sun.
We know God has that capability. We don't know if human beings can create a Carrington event.
Right.
I mean, there is an EMP style event when you detonate a nuke or something, but still, like God is so much more powerful than he's been able to demonstrate. Like obviously, you can do things that we can't even imagine.
And you can't predict a flare coming out of the sun.
Correct. But we would not have the protection that protects us against those.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what happened to Mars.
Yeah.
Dead planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're fucked, guys. This should have been the main part of the.
Well, we had to do this because it ties together.
It's an adventure.
You know, we had to tie it all together. And I never expected to say, "Oh my gosh, now I understand."
Yeah. Well, that does. As you guys were speaking, I'm like, my brain's racing, like trying to connect the dots to a lot of the unexplainable things. Like I said, that's been happening over the last few years.
So the synergy. So already, you know, people are acting out of their minds. They're acting weird. We're getting all these turbo cancers and everything. Yeah, part of it's related to that, you know, the jab, and now it's in our ecosystem. That's what Rafe shared with us. It's in the grass, in the waters. It's even in the trees. You can't get away from it now. But because you have that depletion in the magnetic force field, now we're putting up 5G towers, 6G. You know, the plan is to get to 10G. He says humans won't be alive at 10G.
Why does he say that?
Because we're synergistically increasing the exposure with these 5G towers, 6G towers, and the magnetic decrease. So the radiation that's already seeping through now. So we're accelerating it. And that's why he says that.
Pretend I'm in third grade and explain that one more time.
Okay. Okay, so we know Star Trek. Okay. That ship has a force field around it. Okay. No matter your enemy can fire, you know, lasers at you and it's not going to get through. Right. But as your energy to keep that force field up depletes, now that laser starts penetrating more and more until eventually you no longer has the force field, and now the laser can now destroy.
So we're losing the energy that holds the force field up.
Correct.
And what does that have to do with nanotech in people?
That is the tracker. If you can we can remotely find a pilot, a needle in the haystack. You live in a zone that's not a green zone,
I know it's
and you're radiated, and you're radiated, and you're radiated.
Yeah.
they're going to have to get rid of all the radiated people so they don't infiltrate the green zones.
You can also see him coming because you start getting really creative about this, and that's why it's good to talk to people like you, because you start thinking about when you're explaining the capability of a technology, you can start getting pretty creative, right? How can it be used if you could track any human being on Earth?
Living organisms.
You can see inside their head what they're thinking, like so. In their head intentionally, oh, that guy's got the intention. He's trying to break into the green zone, right? And this is a very minute, very very niche example. You have in a way the powers of God. All right. And that's where we want to go esoteric, want to go spiritual. I think that's partly why the elite are so intrigued by this technology. Right. I mean, the devil, he's always wanted the powers of God, be omnipotent, be omnipresent. And you thought we would see that with like the internet and AI, but this technology truly does give an individual or a select group of individuals godlike power and control in this world.
Yeah. And so like people, let's say some of the lucky few survive after this event, even if it's a gradual or if it's an immediate event that wipes out a majority of the population or makes them very sick, weak, cancer, whatever it is, and they're not within the green zone. Let's say they found a way to survive, whether underground or in some sort of shelter, avoiding going outside and whatever it is. I don't know what it would take, but how long would it take? Is this something that will eventually repair itself, this force field or this magnetosphere that's around the Earth?
Well, what I would say is this. Even those green zones are going to go away at some point. And the only ones that are going to live are those aquatic species that can go deep under the ocean. And that's going to be the only safe place where there's food.
Is this something that does happen periodically on this planet?
There have been 5 extinction events on this planet already.
But as far as the magnetosphere?
Well, the Carrington event.
Carrington event in the 1800s would be one example.
And then how long did that take to repair itself and bolster back up?
It was within a year, from my understanding. It's cyclical, and I mean it's an example of the Creator. God has created these systems and structures to have a reset. Yeah. But I think, frankly, that question one is unpredictable because who the heck knows how long it could? Yeah. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be many years.
But this one is more significant.
Yeah, exactly. I think two, we're not. Well, at least I'm not a scientific expert on this. And I think this is a relatively, and actually very unique, by the way. The fact we got to talk to Rafe. Rafe actually is somewhat of an expert in this field.
Really? What did he say?
Well, we haven't actually had the chance.
Well, I have. I've been talking back and forth because I asked him about this ghost murmur. Yeah. And he goes, well, there's a debate right now in the physics community about whether or not we can track someone because the transmission that the human body does is very, very short distance. We're talking within millimeters. He goes, but they left out one important factor. They didn't put in the factor that if you make each individual human antenna, they're now an amplifier, and then the physics works.
And see, that makes sense about why they fought so hard for it not to be officially disclosed. The graphene oxide was in the shots.
The PCR test.
And the PCR test. So you think the entire population of the globe got exposed, not every single person, but let's say at least 3/5 of the population got exposed either to the shot or to the PCR, or maybe through chemtrails or maybe the food, these other things. But the point is, why would you do that? And why would you fight so hard to stop an official disclosure on something that is innocuous at this point? We can see it. We know what was in it. This could be the reason.
Yeah. Or the ones responsible for disclosure don't even know about this.
Well, then Rafe addressed that, right?
Can't explain it.
Rafe said it gives you a real plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Right? They can't tell you. They're not going to even have to lie to you because they don't even know what's going on, right?
Yeah. Wow, guys. Well, it's definitely been a very eye-opening podcast. Every time you come on, why do you do this to me? Just when I processed the last one.
Well, he knew you had a lot of alcohol around here to deal with this.
What a day.
Well, we appreciate you. But the thing is that at least this gives somewhat of a chance that people need to realize we need to stop this divide and conquer, because that's their design, to keep us fighting amongst each other. And
we're distracted.
Yeah.
while they're plotting their the safety bunker that's going to get them through to the next, or their kids. That's the bloodlines that are going to.
Why are seeds being genetically modified so that our fruits and vegetables, we can't replant them? Think about that. But I guarantee you, they have seeds in their underground bunkers, and they have, a greenhouse environment.
Almost like they're saving them for themselves.
Correct.
While they give us the shit.
Yep.
Because we're all going to die out anyways.
Think about Noah's Ark.
Yeah. They're creating Noah's Ark for them.
Noah's Ark was the green zone.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah, it's reality. So, but everyone, who gets to decide to be God? Well, right now they think they are. Truth is the only thing that can at least give us a fighting chance that we bind together, because our power is in our numbers. And then if we work together for a solution, maybe we could find a solution. God gave us a brilliant gift. This is the best computer in the world. I mean, our intuition and that we utilize really gives us answers sometimes. Sometimes we get divine answers in our sleep.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes maybe it takes events like that to see miracles in the real world. And it's been a long time since we've seen miracles on this planet. So I'm curious and interested and scared all at the same time. But I'm very intrigued. And I think the audience listening to this is definitely intrigued. Tell them where they can find you and find out more information on both Rafe and Dr. Cruz.
So the videos, we're going to be compiling the full interview that'll be on your website. We'll have a link on our website and DS2 Nano.
It's diedsuddenly.info, and then at diedsuddenly_next, and then our Substack's died suddenly news.
Okay.
We siloed that other URL, but
Yeah. And in My Nexus Live, you can always find out information there from us.
You finally got your social media page up and running?
No, not yet. I've been too busy.
He's got a Twitter. Yeah.
I'm like, Jesse, your reels have like over 1 million views. Create a damn page already. Everybody's like, where do I find this guy?
It's part of the allure.
Boomer.
Yeah, he has a True Social account.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Well, anyways, honestly, thank you guys. I appreciate you for taking time out of your day. I know it was a busy, long day. You were at Alex's studio, and then you guys came straight here. I don't know about you. I haven't eaten either. I had a podcast earlier, so I'm starving. But thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this film coming out, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
Well, we appreciate you, brother. You're a hero, too.
Thank you for having us on.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?